People just absolutely loved it and it was great and whatever. And then all of a sudden I get a letter from the state that says, you know, hey, it's been brought to our attention that you're making ice cream and selling it with your raw goat milk. You know, you can't do that. So we started with chickens, the gateway drug, right?
Yep.
And then it just became like, well, we could probably do turkeys. Okay, cool, let's do rabbits. And it just evolved into that. And then we started with a few goats back then. My test numbers, you know, like the data doesn't lie.
Yeah.
So when my bacterial counts are, you know, less than 2,500, you can't beat that with a stick. I mean, it can be up to 20,000 and still be considered safe. And the new lab that we use actually doesn't read anything lower than that. I really want to sell it. So is there a way to make this happen? And he said, well, you can change the law. And I said, okay, we can do that.
So you're Jill.
I am.
And this is Little Red Hen Farm.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Despite the name, which you may have chickens.
Not anymore.
Yeah, okay,
we'll tell
okay.
the story.
you have goats.
Yes.
And your big thing is your creamery.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about like your area here, what you've got going on and where it kind of started a little bit.
Yeah. So we're here in Pittsfield, New Hampshire. Little Red Hen started as sort of, I think, what a lot of little homesteads start as, where you want to raise your own food, you want to, you know, be sustainable and raise healthy food, know where your food comes from, all these things. And I think like a lot of us, we want to do everything.
Yeah.
So we started with chickens, the gateway drug, right?
Yep.
And then it just became like, well, we could probably do turkeys. Okay, cool, let's do rabbits. And like, wow, we should raise pigs. And it just evolved into that. And then we started with a few goats back then. Just as things sort of evolved and started organically kind of just happening and falling into place, it really just started to feel right to really get more involved with the goats and kind of phase out all those other things that we were trying to do. Because you reach a point, I think, especially as a small farmer, you only have so many resources, right? Time, money, all the things. Maybe it's the type A in me. I'm a nurse by trade. Like that's what I've always done. It didn't feel right to not do one thing really, really well versus, you know, spreading myself so thin that I was doing okay with these, okay with that, okay with that. So it didn't feel right. And I said, you know what, we need to find a focus and just run with it. We got out of the little dwarf goats. I know they're very popular. They're just not for me.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of return, you know, and
right.
it just didn't make sense. And they're kind of little buttheads. Like,
They have
in
a lot of
my opinion,
attitude.
they do, yeah. You know, I guess it's kind of like little dogs, right? Like they're always like little Napoleons. So we got out of that and I really decided like, okay, if I want to do this for milk, which was really where my heart was leading me, then I want to have good production, good genetics. I want the best I can find. So we really narrowed down to one herd in the Northeast that we started with, which was Fox's Pride in Mount Vernon. And they're a nationally recognized show herd. They breed for health, longevity, milk production. They're just really, really beautiful animals and wonderful people. So became friends with them. They mentored me through the years, really have allowed me to become a mentor for other small herds starting. So that's just a really, I think, a beautiful kind of pay it forward process that's been really awesome to be part of. But we started with them and then we branched out. They have Nubians and La Manchas. So we started with Nubians. Then we brought in a few of their La Manchas, fell in love with the La Manchas because they're a lot less, Nubians are high maintenance.
And loud, right?
Yeah. Although, do you hear our goats? We have over 70 goats on the property.
What?
Yeah.
And we're standing right outside their pen.
We're standing right outside their pen. Yeah. So, and they're not loud.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that's because they have everything they need. They have a good sized herd. You know, I find when they holler, it's because something's missing. They're missing something. But yes, in general, Nubians are definitely the loudest. And they're just a little bit princessy. You know, La Manchas are sort of like rough, tough.
Yeah.
You know, if I always joke about like, if there's a goat that's going to get sick, it's a Nubian. If there's a goat that's going to have any kind of a problem, it's a Nubian. The La Manchas are like, no, we got this.
Yeah.
They have no issues.
Can we go see him?
Yeah,
All
definitely.
Right,
all right, we are opened up
as
here.
you say that we can't hear.
Yeah. and of course it was a La Mancha.
Or a Nubian, you mean?
No, it was a La Mancha.
Oh, it was a La Mancha. Okay. So is your herd only La Manchas now?
No, we still do Nubians.
Okay.
Yeah, we really like the quality of the Nubian milk.
Okay.
But we don't mix separately. We pool all the milk together.
Okay,
so it
in like a
mix.
bulk tank?
Yeah, in a bulk tank, yep. But we have a pretty evenly split herd now of La Manchas and Nubians. We have In this pen, which branches way out over there, we have 36 does in this pen. We've got 5 big bucks. We can go over and take a little, hi Ruby.
Hi Ruby,
Hello.
how are you?
They have huge fans in their barn.
Oh.
So it's usually more comfortable in their barns than out here on a day like this. So
Yeah.
I don't know how much they're gonna come out, but we'll see what they do.
Yeah, and we can go check their barn out too. if
Yeah,
that's
we
all
can
right.
go see them, yep.
Hi Ruby.
And we've got, oh, there's Luna. Hi Luna. She's one of this year's kids.
Hi, aren't you so sweet?
Those perfect Nubian ears.
And aren't you so
Yeah,
sweet?
this is this year's crop that we're keeping as milkers. We'll grow them out for milkers. Hey girls, you gonna come out? Rita, with your beard, are you coming?
They're like, no.
They're like, no. Do you know
No,
how cool it is in here?
I am not coming out
No,
there.
we're
You
not.
can't make me.
No.
Can I come see your house?
Yeah, you definitely can. Everybody's very sweet.
Oh, you guys are packed in here, huh?
Oh yeah, they're it's ridiculous,
Hi.
and it should go on record that the girls have 3 barns to choose from. There are 3 barns they can use that are all this size.
You're like, I'm not
And
doing this.
They
to you guys.
sardine themselves into this
Hi.
barn, which in the winter is nice. They stay nice and warm. But I'll tell you, in the summer, I'm like, I don't know what you guys are doing and why. It's silly, absolute silliness.
So tell me a little bit then about how that transition worked, because I'm hearing that a lot, and I'm learning that myself. That once we as small homesteaders, like you said,
Sure.
we have to do it all, right?
Yeah.
Do it all and do it all by yourself.
We've done it all.
And that's it. And you decided to niche down, which
Yeah.
a lot of people are really leaning towards, and I'm learning myself, like, oh, do one thing really, really
Yeah.
well and it will serve you better.
Yep.
So how did that transition go as you were, changing things?
Yeah, so for us, it really felt very natural. It was just a matter of like, okay, so what makes sense for us if we want to focus on being a raw milk dairy, goat milk, then we have to have a plan for all the kids that are born. What makes sense. So several years ago, we started to raise some of the male offspring for meat. Goat meat's an interesting thing, right? So
Yeah.
it's like one of the most popular and literally one of the most popular, commonly eaten meat in the world.
Yeah.
Just not in the United States.
Right.
Like we just haven't really caught on. We spent a couple of seasons doing that and really created a market around here for our goat meat. And then we took the year off because we had decided that we wanted to, again, shift focus, really get into the goats and have a plan for them, which meant we wanted bigger paddocks, more space, able to rotate,
Yeah.
all those things. And we looked at everything and we said, okay, so the only way we can really do that is the pigs have to go because they are taking up a huge amount of space over there because they had the whole paddock over there, which we'll go to, and they had access to the back 30. It was just, for what?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, every little farm around the area raises pork. Anybody can get a pork share anywhere.
Yeah.
You can't get goat meat anywhere. And we end up with a lot of goat meat because of our production here. So
Fertility's 50-50, right? Or like sex genetics is 50-50.
yeah. So it's like we just had to have a plan. So I said, all right, if we're shifting our focus this way, then it's time. So the pigs were that was an easy decision. The hardest part for me was actually, we had about 75 pork share customers that we maintained over the years that would always come back to us at their time to get it. And I didn't want to leave them stranded. And we fill our farm store with our own pork. We were lucky enough, we've created a lot of great relationships in the community with other farmers because of that store, really. So we have Birch Rice Farm in Sanbornton. They raise the same breed of pigs the same way. They even use the same butcher. And they do the volume. They were able to take over all of our pork share customers and keep our store stocked.
Wow.
So it was like perfect, easy, painless transition.
Yeah.
Pigs were gone. I'll never forget the day we loaded the last pigs on the trailer to go to the butcher. I was like, bye-bye, we're done. I'm just done, I'm done.
out.
Yeah, I'm done. We loved having the pigs, like, right? There's things that we love about them.
Right.
But it was time.
Yeah.
It was just time.
Yeah, I feel that.
Anyway, so they're gone. But what that allowed us to do was open up this entire paddock over here, which actually goes down there and then back around into the back 30. So now our meat kids are all raised over there separately, and they just are out on pasture, and we don't give them hay or anything. They just browse and graze and do their thing.
Yeah.
And they get supplemented with grain. We did
Okay.
learn that about raising goat meat. If you don't grain them, you have really gamey goat meat, and it's no good, in my opinion.
That's interesting.
Took us a long time to figure out how much grain is the right amount, at what age, like all those things. But
Was there like
it's been several years now. We've really nailed it, I think.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's really interesting. Was there like an influence there where somebody was saying somewhere like it has to be grass-fed? Because I know there's a huge grass-fed movement, right? If it's a
yeah.
ruminant, it should be grass-fed.
Right.
And you're saying it just didn't taste right.
It didn't taste right. No,
So-
and that was just me, like
Really?
us trying it. We really love goat meat. I'm like, I've had goat meat from other places and I'm like, gosh, it's gamey. Why? Like, I don't like that. Because we always just grained them.
Yeah.
I mean, they're always pasturing and
Right,
like getting
right.
hay in the winter and like all this. They're always getting, it's just so many buzzwords, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's like, I want grass-fed beef. Well, they're all grass-fed because they're cows, so they all eat grass.
Right.
Like, you know, what you really want to know is how are they finished? Like
Right.
what, you know, that kind of thing. We've always grained and our goat meat has always just been so tender and just has such a nice flavor and there's none of that intense gamey flavor.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, this has to be because we grain and others don't. So we really, and it's a very, very lean meat. Very lean.
Yes.
In my opinion, if you don't grain them to a degree, it's so lean that it like cooks like leather. Like you
Yeah.
just really gotta, you know. So anyway, it took us a few years, but we really figured out that good balance of what age to send them to the butcher, when
Okay.
to start the grain, when to stop the grain, and how much per head. Now it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Do you
We're
mind
just leaving it alone.
sharing a little bit or generalizing
Yeah.
like what those levels are?
Yeah, sure, yeah. So we send them to butcher about 10 or 11 months old.
Okay.
We found, you know, there's a market for younger kids, but for us financially, it actually works better to keep them a little bit longer and get a better return on the animal
yeah.
as far as meat back. And grain, we use a goat grower, you know, just a standard goat grower grain. We do like Poulin. Are you familiar with Poulin? Oh, they're in Vermont. They're like
Okay.
a family-owned grain company. So we do feed Poulin, and just give you an example. So we have 18 meat kids in that paddock right now, and they get grained twice a day, and they get about 12 pounds per feeding.
Per
So-
18.
Per 18.
Wow.
Yeah. So
It's not a lot at all.
it's not a lot,
Yeah.
but we've learned that it's just enough
Yeah.
to get enough marbling in that meat so that it has good flavor, enough fat to make it cook nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really, really worked well.
So the meat kids are like your byproduct, right? But
Yes,
your
which I prefer to call co-product.
Your co-product, okay,
Because I
yes,
feel like
yes,
byproduct has
yes.
such a negative connotation.
yeah.
Like we got to find something to do with the extra.
Yeah.
You know, but for us, it's very much a co-product
Yeah.
because if we couldn't do that, we really couldn't do this. Because what are we going to do with all these boys? Personally, I think the market is flooded with pet goats that tend to end up at auction anyway or on Craigslist when the novelty wears off. You know, everybody wants goats when they're little and they're cute. And then they realize like, wow, these are actually a lot of work. And then they're on Craigslist anyway. So that was
Yeah.
a big drive for us too, that like, I want to plan so that I know what's happening to my kids that I'm producing. For me, that was, I'm going to give them 10 months of an amazing life and then they're going to serve their purpose.
Yeah.
And that feels better to me than selling them off cheap as pets and knowing who knows what is going to happen. So that just makes more sense.
Yeah.
But if I couldn't do that, I really couldn't do this.
Yeah. So
You know,
this is
so-
your main staple product, which
Is our dairy.
The dairy.
Yes. Yeah.
Walk me through. Can we go to your parlor?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. That's
so-
way up here. Actually, we'll walk the same way the goats do.
Let's do
Come
it.
and get
you want to
milked.
pretend to be a goat?
Yeah. I'm not hollering like a Nubian. Hi, girls. They're like, it's not milking time. We're not going with you.
I'm not going anywhere.
No. No.
So how many times do you milk a day?
We actually just milk once a day.
Okay.
Yeah, traditionally goats, like cows, are milked twice a day.
Right.
It doesn't work for my life
Yeah.
with everything else going on.
Because are you still a nurse?
I'm not actually. Nope.
Okay.
I did officially give that up back in February.
Oh, okay. Congratulations.
Yes,
I
thank
think.
you.
Yes.
Yes, no,
Yeah.
yes. Very much a voluntary decision. So the goats come up through this little gate and they actually know the drill. They come in. They're each paired together. Everybody knows who goes with who. There's no fighting. It's
I love that.
They
It
come,
cracks
you know,
me up.
Rita, Euphoria, let's go. They go, then they go back. Lemmy, Ash, let's go. They go, and it's amazing.
Awesome.
And they come in.
And you're milking 70 at a time?
No, I'm only milking actually 18 right now.
Wow.
So there's over 70 because of the big bucks, the meat
Okay.
kids, the babies. But when it comes to the actual milkers, there's 30-ish in that pen. We're milking 18, and then I still have actually a group that's still going to kid out. Because one of the things that makes us a little unique is we actually try to stay in milk year round. But that doesn't mean milking the same doe year round.
Now I was gonna say, because that can be difficult. The way that
Yes.
goats, their fertility cycle works is it's based on the light.
Yeah, and
right.
So they naturally come into a cycle in the fall, and they'll cycle every 3 weeks until you get them bred. And then so I usually breed around October, and then those girl's kid in March. So it's a 5-month gestation.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that I can milk those girls. They'll probably have very heavy milk lines, so they'll produce for me, no problem. But I'll get those girls through till about 8 weeks before their next kidding. So they would only get me milk through December. So I'd always have that like 2-month lag of no milk.
Because you have to dry them off.
Yeah, I dry them off.
They kid.
Yeah, about 2 months before kidding, just so they can put those last 2 months of energy fully into the kids and not have to be producing milk too. So we end up with this lag time, which for us, we've really become a trusted source in the area for raw goat milk because of the way we handle it and do our things, and we have just about everything here that we need to actually be a licensed grade A dairy, which is our next step. We're working on that, but we're waiting for the state inspector to come out and give us a checklist of the last few little things we need to do, but we have just about everything we need. And that again is probably the nurse in me, right?
Yeah.
Like as soon as we started selling raw milk to the public, I was like, wait a minute, how do we know it's safe? You know, like, yes, of course, I'm a huge proponent of raw milk, but there can be risks. I mean, you know, people handle it wrong. It's, you know, you can't, in my opinion, you can't milk into an open bucket under the goat and then let it sit there for a while before you do anything with it. Like, Anyway, so we started testing milk right away back then and just trying to learn, and, you know, we'd get our results back and
When was this?
Oh, we started testing our milk back in like 2016.
Okay, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's
okay. Curious.
Yeah, I had to really think about it though. It was when we first started producing enough milk that we wanted to sell it. It was like, okay, I need to have some sort of a baseline knowing of whether is my process right? Is it safe? Do I need to make adjustments? And it was such a learning experience. Like I'd get those results back and I'd go, oh, that's still safe, but it's higher than I want it to be. How do I fix that? And I'd reach out to the lab. Okay, so what does this mean? How do I fix it? What should I adjust? And they were amazing at just like helping me fine tune my process, get the right chemicals for cleaning. I mean, and now our milk test results are so stellar. They're just awesome. Yeah, so it definitely paid off to just go that extra little mile, you know. But anyway, I guess what I was saying is, you know, being one of the more trusted raw goat milk producers in the area, when we run out of goat milk, we have a lot of people that are pretty bummed out. So we wanted to find a way to have goat milk year round, and how can we do that? So ideally what that means is that we have a group of goats that will get bred as late as like February so that they'll kid in July, and then we'll have our traditional big milkers, the heavy producers that will kid in March and milk through December. So we'll basically never have a lag. There'll always be, there might be a time where it's a little less production, but we try to make that so that it's during the winter when we're not having to make so much ice cream. You know, we'll make ice cream year round, but it's not, we don't have to make 25 gallons a week like we do now. Kind of the way we're trying to work it.
Absolutely. So let's see where they
the
go.
Parlor, the milking parlor at the hen.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, those are our girls. So this is where they come in. You don't have to tell them where to go. It's hilarious.
Oh my gosh, it's so nice and air conditioned in here. I bet they're like, I bet, but still, I'm sure they're like, oh yeah, I want to go in there.
Yeah, okay, they're not sad about it.
So they walk up in here.
They come in, they jump up on their stands. They always go to the same stand. It's hilarious. I mean, they're just good at what they're doing. They know their job. And then so I'm not going to turn it on because it's incredibly loud. But the vacuum pump is back here. So we have, this is what's called a pipeline. If you've been to a dairy, I'm sure you have. So this is on a much smaller scale.
Yes.
Because we have 2 goats at a time is all we need. But the milk is piped once their udder has been cleaned. We have a pretty strict udder protocol to make sure that that's clean. And then the milk goes into the pipeline into here, and it's actually piped right into our bulk tank in the kitchen, and then that's where all like the magic happens. The ice cream making.
So like no air gets into it.
Yes, it's a closed system. It's a closed system, and the system actually cleans itself with the detergent, the acid, and the sanitizer. Once I'm done milking, basically I flip a couple switches, I put all my chemicals in, flip a switch, and it cleans itself. And again, you know, for me, how do I know it's working? My test numbers.
Yeah.
You know, like the data doesn't lie.
Yeah.
So when my bacterial counts are, you know, less than 2,500, you can't beat that with a stick. I mean, it can be up to 20,000 and still be considered safe. And we're less than 2,500 every time. And the new lab that we use actually doesn't read anything lower than that. So you get less than 2,500, you don't actually know what it is. The old lab that we used to use, they'd actually tell you like, oh yeah, it was 100. You know, it was 150, it was 400. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's not even worth reporting, you know. So I know what we're doing is working. I know the milk is, I think it's irresponsible to say safe raw milk, so we use the term low risk.
Okay.
You know, it's low risk.
With your protocols being the way that they are and your
Yeah.
tests being so low, is there a difference in, because you just said bacteria,
Yeah.
right? So is there a difference in the good bacteria versus
Oh,
bad
sure,
bacteria
sure.
that you're looking for? Because I know we all are proponents for raw milk because of the good bacteria
Yes.
that it has.
Yeah.
So is the test counting specific bacteria?
Bad.
It's just
yes,
bad.
it's looking for
Okay.
the things that are dangerous.
Okay.
Yes, like coliforms, E. coli,
Right.
Klebsiella, like those kind of things. Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
But
that's a
it's-
great question.
It's not looking for the things that we classify as good
Correct.
bacteria.
So in other words,
Okay.
my system is not removing, right? So the only way to really remove the good bacteria would be pasteurization.
Right.
Right. So yeah,
Okay.
that's a great question. Yeah, I never thought about that the way I explained that, how that could come across. But no, it's the test that we're looking for is we want to know, is there a risk for anybody getting sick from the bad bacteria that
Right.
could be in the milk.
Right.
And what we're finding with our test results, which I think is a direct result of the protocols we follow, is that it's a very low risk.
Yeah.
Very low risk. I
Yeah.
mean, there's just not, some of them, I mean, we used to use Cornell in Cornell University,
Mm-hmm.
and the lab would call me every now and then and say, I don't know how to count this. Like, you're so low. You're lower than most dairies, you know, that we see. And which was very humbling.
That is a
but
very
also
good
just
compliment.
like, wow, that's awesome. What we're doing is working. Okay.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
I
so,
think you having the nurse background too.
yeah, it makes me a little crazy.
No. I was saying it all in a good way.
Yeah.
Because you know how to read those results.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
like
sure.
you are
a
familiar
little
with
microbiology.
Yeah, like you're familiar with all of the information that's there, right? Just the data in general. I think that probably helps you out.
It does.
A little
yeah,
bit too,
it definitely
right?
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just even things like aseptic technique, right? Like, you know, things that I think a lot of we mentor a lot of little farms that are trying to do, you know, a lot of dairy and stuff. And I have them come here sometimes and watch my udder protocol, and they're like, whoa, like those are things I don't think about, you know, like once I wash the udder, it needs to be dry, right? So it needs to get dry. And then each teat has to get an iodine dip.
Yeah.
That's so important. The washing is really just about debris and
Right.
big stuff. But the iodine is what's going to make sure that whole teat that's going to go in that inflation is clean, really clean. Well, then that needs to be dried off, but not before it sits for 30 seconds to do its job. You know, there's just so many little
Yeah.
details, you know. And then when I'm going to wipe those teats, I'm using a clean half a paper towel for each teat. Like, so and I swear that's just the nurse, right? Like, it's just that aseptic, like, don't let that one touch that one, you know? And then
Yeah.
when my inflations come off, they never touch the stand.
Right.
My inflations come from here, get on the teats, they come off the teats, they get hung back up. Like,
Yeah.
but
I
I'm just
mean,
a little crazy about it.
We live in a world where we have seen that milk can be
Yes, it can make people
dangerous.
sick, for
It-
sure.
It can make people sick. And your protocols obviously are doing something good.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, I would never feel confident in saying there's never, ever, ever going to be a risk, you know,
Right.
because there's so many variables. I mean, we have a lot of people that come up from Massachusetts to buy our goat milk because you can't really get raw milk down there. And I think that's wonderful, but when I know they're driving an hour with it, I'm like, you have a cooler with ice, right? Because, I mean, it's leaving here safe. I don't know what, you
Right.
know, so there's so many variables. So I'm always cautious to say, like, there'll never be a problem. But I think we're doing more than what we need to do to make sure it's as low risk as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it goes from there into the pipe.
Piped, yep, piped
into the
right
bulk
through
tank.
that into the wall and then into our little kitchen. So this is our kitchen. So the milk, here's the other side of that pipe. And
yes.
currently it's hooked up to the sink because it just ran a wash cycle.
Oh, yes.
But this pipe here is usually hooked up to this bulk tank. So the milk pipes right down into this bulk tank. This chills the milk down to about 34 to 36 degrees in about 40 minutes,
Yeah.
which is the federal standard to make sure that it's as safe as possible. Really hard to do. Like, kudos to a lot of little dairies that don't have bulk tanks, which we were for a long time, because you're talking about, you got to get that milk. I mean, you really want that milk 36 degrees in 40 minutes from the udder. Like, it comes out of the udder really hot. You've got a long way to go to get
Yeah.
it cold.
It's like what, 96,
Easy.
98 degrees?
Easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, their body temp is about 101, 102.
Right.
And I mean, it comes out warm. So
Yeah.
you have a long way to get it cold. You know, easily 50 degrees, you need to change it. And it's hard to do when it's a big volume. So it's a lot of manual labor. You know, you are go milking as fast as you can, get that milk filtered into smallest jars as you can, and then ice bathing it. And ice bathing like in a cooler, and there's a lot of little places like, oh, well, we bottle it and stick it right in the freezer. I know that feels like it'll work, but it doesn't. Put a thermometer in it and watch it for an hour, and you're gonna see it does not get cold enough fast enough. So there's just all those little education pieces, that I think are lacking that hopefully will change soon. But yeah, so thankfully, this thing is worth its weight in gold.
How much does one of those run?
Cost-wise?
Yeah.
So this one here was, I think, around $2,800.
That's not that bad.
It's not terrible.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say it's not a lot of money.
No.
But,
right.
I mean, it's not 20 grand.
No.
Right?
Right, exactly.
And I'm sure there's bigger ones that are more expensive.
Pasteurizers are about 20 grand.
Right.
So you could skip all this and just get a pasteurizer. Yeah.
How many gallons does that store?
This is the smallest one they make. It's 15. And we've already learned that it's too small for us. So we're in the market for a bigger one. Yeah, especially as we try to approach this grade A dairy licensing, what that essentially means for us is that we'll now be able to sell our raw goat milk at other stores. So to be able to do that, we're going to need volume.
Yeah.
So I'm already looking at a bigger tank.
Yeah.
So, that was kind of silly, but it's the way we do it, right?
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know, right?
No, and then you figure it out.
So you bottle it from here?
Yeah, we bottle it right from here. So we just put the milk in the crates, and we sit here and bottle all the milk, and it comes out of here at you can see it's at 37 degrees right now. If this kicks up to 38, the compressor automatically kicks on and agitates and chills the milk back down to 36. So it holds it like 36, 37.
Gotcha.
And it can stay in there all day because it's staying cold.
Right.
And I can bottle it tonight and then be done with it. And then this gets cleaned manually. This is the only part of the system that gets cleaned manually, because once we remove this pipe, so now you can see the pipe is continuous this way.
Right.
So that's the system with the chemicals.
Right here.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a detergent, an acid, and a sanitize. Right now they're filled with water because they've already run their system.
Okay.
But normally you fill the bottoms with the appropriate amount of chemical. Okay. And then you literally flip a switch once you're ready to rock, and you've got your pipe in here, and the sink fills, and it sucks the water and the chemical through here, runs it through the whole system. Every square inch of the system gets touched.
Wow.
And then comes around and drains back into here. So this is just a constant volley of back and forth, back and forth.
How long does that run for?
It takes about 30 to 35 minutes for the whole thing.
That's not bad.
No, it's not. And it actually at the end blows air through the whole system to dry any water that's left behind, so that there's not water just sitting in the lines, which can obviously become gross. This was worth its weight in gold, but this was a much bigger investment, so I understand why little farmers, can't do it, but it was definitely, it
was worth it for you.
It was worth it for us, for sure.
Do you want to talk about how much it cost?
Oh, sure, yeah. So by the time we were done building the addition for the parlor, the room, and then all of this entire system, every little component you see, we are probably about 50 grand into it. So that's obviously
for 18 goats.
Well,
right, milking goats at a time.
Currently 18.
Right.
Yeah, currently 18.
Yeah.
But when everybody is actually on the string, we'll be around 30. Yeah.
Okay, 18 to 30 goats.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about time, and I'm going to go slow here, so how long does it take for you to milk the goats?
Get them actually just milked?
Yeah.
So the 18 right now, about 45 minutes, 2 at a time.
And then it takes like 30 minutes to chill it, 30 minutes to clean it.
Yep.
So.
But this is essentially a walk away.
Right. You just do it and you're fine.
Whereas before it would take me about 30 or 45 minutes to manually clean all of my tanks and all the hoses and everything, because I still used all the same chemicals and everything to clean, but I was having to do it manually.
Yeah.
The time saver on this is priceless.
Yeah.
Absolutely priceless.
So how much time are you spending now milking and cleaning? I won't say necessarily bottling.
Right, yeah, because that's kind of a separate thing.
Yeah.
And we don't always bottle.
Right.
Sometimes we're using all this milk to make 20 batches of ice cream or yogurt or whatever we're making.
Right.
I would say from start to finish, milking, and cleaning and everything, it's probably about 2 hours total. And that's with an interruption here and there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you're doing that once a day.
Once a day.
That's not that big of a deal.
When they first freshen, they're of course very heavily producing.
Right.
So I do milk them twice a day for a few weeks just because it's uncomfortable for them.
I feel that.
Yeah, yep. But as they start to kind of really settle into their lactation and kind of get over that first big hump of like, wow, I got to make milk, then I settle them back a little bit and get them all comfortably on once a day, and they do great.
Nice.
Yeah, so that just works better for me.
What do you do with, I guess I probably should have asked this out here, but what do you do with the kids? Do they stay
that's
on
a
the
great
mom?
question. No. So, and that's different for us actually. This year was the first first year we fully pulled kids.
Okay.
So we had always done what is called like kid sharing, or with cows
Right.
it's calf sharing, right? Or milk sharing, however you want to call it. And we'd always done that. For me, it was always just like, well, it's less work for me. It seems more natural. It's got such a happy, there's this happy idea to it. And I thought, okay, that's the way we want to do it. So we did that for years. We definitely learned over the years, like, that has its downsides too. I mean, not every goat is a fantastic mom. Like, some of them just don't want to nurse the kids. They don't let the kids nurse as much as they need to. Some of them are wonderful, but there's plenty of them that aren't. So what that meant for me was a constant watching the cameras. Wait, is she letting them nurse? I don't know if she's letting them nurse. Hold on, I got to go outside again. Constant running outside.
Yeah.
And when you've kidded out 20 or 25 does and you're having to watch and make sure everybody's nursing everybody.
And they're having at least 2.
At least 2. Yeah, we tend to have a lot of triplets. So,
yeah.
And that's hard. It was a lot of labor, and no sleep and those kind of things. The other piece of it is the amount of times that I had does with injuries to their teats as their kids get teeth, like things like that. I was like, oh, now I got to deal with making sure that I can't milk the goat if she's bleeding from a wound on her teat,
Right.
So there was just a lot of those things that didn't seem to work. But the way we would do it when we did it that way is that we would leave the kids on moms for 24 hours for the first 2 weeks, 24 hours a day for the first 2 weeks, not milk them at all. Just let her give all her milk to the kid. Then at 2 weeks old, we'd start separating the kids at night, milk the mamas in the morning. We would give the kids a bottle, not because they need it, because they're about to go with mom for the day, but it was the way that we kept them not being wild and totally dam raised. Because, I don't know, people claim that you can dam raise them and still make them friendly if you handle them. I don't buy it, because I just don't buy it. I've not had that experience. No matter how much we handled, they were like wild demons. Wow. So I was like, yeah, we're not doing that. So I would give them a bottle just to kind of like start to teach them, like, see, we're providing you milk, we're good. So we did that for several years. What really, really kick-started the change for me for that was, you just start to pick things up, hear things, you go, oh, let me look into that. What is to that? There's got to be something to that. And there was I was seeing a lot of literature out there about increased risks with the safety of raw milk when they're kid sharing or calf sharing. Because like babies and children, these kids and these calves are exploring the world with their mouth, and who knows, grabbing onto a fence post covered in manure or whatever, and then going and sucking on that teat. And I was like, that kind of makes sense to me. Yeah. So I actually started to follow RAMI, the Raw Milk Institute.
Oh, yeah.
If you haven't checked them out.
I haven't seen them. I know realmilk.com.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen RAMI
So the
yet.
Raw Milk Institute is really, they're a great resource, especially for those that want to sell raw milk to the public. They're just tons of education, just really, really good information that's actually backed by, science. It's not, well, I heard that, blah, 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 And again, the nurse in me. I want the data, I want the science, I want to understand.
Right.
So started following them, and that was one of their things, was like, people really need to start looking at, I know it feels good to milk share, feels better for your soul, but is it the safest way to practice? And the more I learned about it, I was like, and saw some data, I was like, ooh, this isn't comfortable with me.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I don't want to do that. So this past March was the first year that we just said, okay, we're 100% pulling kids. It was hard. It was definitely hard. I have some mamas that are incredibly maternal.
Do you give them the colostrum? Like how do they get colostrum?
They get that from me. Milking mom
from
immediately.
You.
Yeah,
okay.
I milk mom immediately and give those babies that colostrum within a couple hours after birth. And they get that for at least the 24 hours. I mean, we actually don't put any of our milkers on the pipeline for at least 5 to 7 days, which is also a safety thing.
Okay.
They're higher risk for mastitis and bacterial growth in that first 5 to 7 days. So we don't add them to our bulk milk until they get past that. So for those 5 to 7 days, those kids are only getting their mom's milk. But pulling them from my really maternal mamas, there were moments that I was just like, am I doing the right thing? And again, thank you for Bree at Fox's Pride, who really helped talk me off the ledge many times. I was like, Bree, but look, and I'm sending her videos of Rita at the gate screaming for me. And I'm like, oh, and she said, I promise you by tomorrow she's okay. And you know what? They were. They always were. They were okay. And she kept talking to me about how she'd say, Jill, wait till you feel the stronger bond you have with the doe when you've taken the kids and you are their source of milk relief and that bonding with them. And I'm like, okay, we'll see. It's not even describable. It's really something. There's definitely something to that. I have some does now that I have 100% are in my pocket. Like they just can't get close enough to you. And so I've really enjoyed that, actually.
Yeah.
And I just enjoy knowing my milk is safer.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about that. I'm not out there constantly wondering, is mama letting her nurse? I know for sure those kids are getting exactly what they need when they need it. They're growing well. They're growing better. I have found they're growing way better than when they're on the moms.
You said that there's a funny story behind
Bootleg ice cream.
your bootleg ice cream. So we're gonna go talk about that story on our way to your storefront. So
Perfect.
start queuing it up. What happened? What is that story?
Yeah, so when we first started to really get into milking and had all this extra milk that we needed something to do with, we started making, it was actually a friend of mine, she says, too bad we couldn't make ice cream. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Like, let's make goat milk ice cream. So we made up a recipe, and it actually ended up being really awesome ice cream. And we were like, wow, this is delicious. And really in my naivety was like, well, we could probably sell this. Like, why can't we sell ice cream, right? You can sell raw milk and cream. Can't we just churn it and call it ice cream?
Yeah.
So we did. And again, total naive on my part. This was a long time ago. This was actually back in like, I think 2018 or 17 or something that we started the whole process. But anyway, so we started selling it. Well, everybody loved it because again, the draw to goat milk, right, is when you have trouble with cow dairy, goat milk is very tolerable.
Right.
The fact that people could eat real ice cream and not pay for it later, they were thrilled. So we started selling it in our little teeny tiny, we had a farm stand about a quarter of the size of this. Started selling it in there. It went absolutely crazy. People just absolutely loved it and it was great and whatever. And then all of a sudden I get a letter from the state that says, you know, hey, it's been brought to our attention that you're making ice cream and selling it with your raw goat milk. You know, you can't do that. It's like, oh, well, okay, well, geez, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to break any rules, no problem. I said, what do I do? And he said, well, you gotta stop selling it. I said, okay, yeah, but I really wanna sell it. So is there a way to make this happen? And he said, well, you can change the law. And I said, okay, we can do that. So we reached right out to we pulled it out of the store right away, reached out to our state rep and said, here's what we want to do. The current raw milk law says that we can sell, as long as we produce less than 20 gallons a day at the time, then we can sell raw milk, cream, butter, yogurt, kefir, and aged cheeses. But we cannot do ice cream or frozen yogurt, and we want to. So we need to change the law. And he said, okay, sure, I'll take this. So anyway, it snowballed into this big process, and it ended up taking us 3 years. We all sat down together. We had to meet with, of course, the DHHS and the Department of Ag and the other state reps that were involved that wanted this to happen. And then we took it through all the steps. We went to the House and then to the Senate and, you know, all that. And COVID, of course, shut down the Senate. So it kept pushing everything back, pushing everybody back. So it took us 3 years. But we finally, in 2022, got Governor Sununu to sign the law. So now, for raw milk, if you are a small producer and you produce less than 20 gallons a day, you can now make raw milk ice cream and frozen yogurt and sell it, which is fantastic. So it's a huge win for little dairies, which is awesome. I'm not gonna lie, I do wish that we had thought then about actually adding some education requirements to it because of the handling, right? Like, because I do find that there are a lot of little dairies around that don't fully understand the safe handling of raw milk. So I wish that we had talked about like, well, let's have like you get together with UNH and have UNH put together a raw milk class and something simple like that. So we'll work on that. But in the meantime, that was kind of a big deal. But what happened with this, why we call it bootleg, we started to get messages like crazy when we pulled it out of the stand. Where's the ice cream? Where's the ice cream? I came for ice cream. Where's the ice cream? So I said, well, I better put this on our page. Like, people are really wanting to know.
Yeah.
So I did if you're looking for our ice cream, here's the scoop.
Yeah.
And I did this quick little, like, this is what happened. The state told us we can't do it. We're not making enemies of the state. We're just simply saying, this is what happened. We're going to work on it. We're going to try to change the law. So stay tuned, blah, blah, blah. Well, it was a little crazy. Within 24 hours, the Boston Globe called us to do a story.
What?
And I was like, you're from the Boston Globe? What? So they did a story, and then the Union Leader, and then the Concord Monitor, and then within about a week of that post, we had 50,000 people following that post. The Associated Press picked it up, MSNBC picked it up. Like, it just exploded into this thing that was crazy. And then WMUR, a local news station, showed up, and we did a story on that. And I mean, it was just, all the while I'm going, it's ice cream, guys. Like, what the heck?
You
but
scream ice cream, you know?
Yeah,
Like, we all cream for ice cream.
But really what we realized is it wasn't, right? It was about food freedom.
Yeah.
And it was about, if you want to feed your family raw milk products, you should have the right to do that. As long as things are handled properly, we should be able to feed each other, all of those things, right? That we all talk about as little farmers. So the name came from basically, I put another post and I said, okay guys, we're really going for it. We're going to change the law. Everybody wants this to happen. We're going to do it. In the meantime, since our ice cream is illegal, we're going to call it bootleg ice cream. And here are the 7 flavors that we started with, which were like vanilla, chocolate, pistachio, strawberry, and black raspberry. And I said, I want all of you guys to come back with criminally inspired names for the ice cream. And that's what we're going to call the flavors. So it just exploded.
Can we go see them?
Yeah. We had so much fun with it. So we ended up with vanilla vigilante and black market raspberry and, prohibition pistachio.
Yeah.
So that's where that all comes from.
You can go ahead.
Sure. It's nice and cool in here. Oh.
And it's the first thing you see
Yes.
when you walk into your store.
Yes.
Look at all of these. And I gotta say, before we got started, the kids saw the ice cream sign and they said, is there ice cream in there?
Yeah.
And I said, yes, there's ice cream in there. And can we have some?
Yeah.
So I grabbed them a couple and I already tried
awesome.
some. It is so good. And
Thank
ice
you.
cream is our clutch.
Yeah.
Like anytime
Me
if
too.
we're traveling, if we find a good ice cream spot, that's where all of our extra spending is going. We don't go out to fancy dinners. We don't go to the movies. We just go get good ice cream.
That's right. There you go. Yeah, there you go.
This is so cool.
Yeah, so we make 40 flavors now.
Wow.
And, like I've said, we make about, 15 to 25 gallons a week, depending on the week.
So when you say a small producer in so many gallons, that's gallons of ice cream or of milk?
Yeah, so the exemption is
Okay.
speaking to gallons of milk processed
Total.
a day, and that has to be 20 or less.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so 40 flavors, and we, without sharing my entire recipe, of course, but one of the things that we learned is that if you try to make goat milk ice cream with just goat milk, it's an ice brick. It's basically iced milk. There's not enough fat in goat milk to really give it any kind of a creamy texture. So we've really had to experiment with ways to get that creamy. I didn't want to introduce eggs to, a lot of ice creams use eggs, right? And I was like, we're already using raw milk. I don't need to add eggs as another element of risk.
Right.
So we're not doing eggs. So we just played around with different things, and and of course, as I've said, our goat milk customer base is because it's so tolerable and digestible. So we didn't want to ruin that for them.
Yeah.
But what we learned is we really do need some heavy cream in there. So it's a very small amount, but it's enough for the creamy texture. And we specifically work with one farm in Massachusetts, and they're a certified A2A2 Jersey farm. My thought was, if we're going to use a heavy cow cream and venture into cow cream at all with our goat milk ice cream, I want to make sure it's A2A2, so it's still tolerable for people. And I'll tell you, I've talked to, at this point, hundreds of our customers that, I can't do any cow dairy, I can't. And they try the ice cream and they're like, oh my gosh, it's fine. I'm fine. And I really believe it's because we're so careful about that heavy cream. And it's actually really not a lot in comparison to the volume of goat milk.
Right.
It's just enough for that texture. And then, and I think that's the beauty of our base, though, is it's literally raw goat milk, heavy A2 cream, and sugar. That's the base. There's nothing on it you can't pronounce. There's no crap in it. There's nothing else extra in it. And then colors, all of our colors are food derived. So the reds and the pinks are all from beets. The greens are from spirulina. So everything is, the purples are from purple carrots. That was really important to me. The oranges are annatto. So, we didn't want artificial colors and flavors and stuff. All the flavorings we use are actually real extracts, not like artificial color flavors or even natural flavors, which is like, what the heck is that? So
I thought the same.
Yeah. So it's so we use extracts for the flavoring. Really, the only thing that's difficult to control is the mix-ins that we put in. I can't control what Oreo puts in their cookies, but we got to have cookies and cream. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but that's one of those things. There's plenty of flavors that have nothing in it, or just a nut. So that you can, if that means a lot to you and you don't want any kind of sprinkle or anything, then just go with a black raspberry. And then, you're good. And then that's all it is.
So is your kitchen up there, is it like a licensed commercial kitchen?
No, it's not. No.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be. So because we're operating under the raw milk laws, so we could make all this ice cream on our kitchen counter up in our house. There's nothing that says we can't. Again, that's just me. I want everything stainless. I want everything cleanable. I want all of those things. And if we go forward with the raw dairy, then that will become a licensed processing room.
Okay.
But it's not going to be called a commercial kitchen because we don't have all the, we don't have stoves in there.
Right.
We don't have all that
We
kind of
don't
stuff.
need the range.
We don't need all of that
Right,
stuff, right?
right.
We just need the milk processing equipment.
Yeah.
So that will become inspected if we go forward with the licensing. But it doesn't have to be to do what we do, which is also just really cool for little farmers because you don't have to invest everything that we did. You can just, there's another local farm right around the corner in Mattress Maple. Beautiful people, and they are maple sugars, and they have Jersey cows, and they have a little sugar house where they sell their raw milk. And they last year started making raw milk ice cream, and it was like such a moment for me because I was like, yeah, that's what changing the law was about, right? Like, this is so great because now they have this extra milk that they can do something with. And let's face it, ice cream is a great value-added product because it has such a great shelf life. Hi.
Absolutely.
So that's just huge. So they started making their maple crunchy ice cream, which is awesome, with their raw Jersey cow milk and cream. So anyway, it's a very, very cool thing. But the fact is they don't have to have all of that. You know, Lindsay can do this in her clean kitchen and just make her ice cream in small batches, and there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's a win. It really is. It was very cool.
Awesome.
But
I would love to taste some while on camera. Is that
Oh,
okay?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pick
so
one.
I am a sucker for the salted caramel anything.
Oh yeah.
Every single time. So let's see. Is there a good spot? I know we're getting customers in here.
Yeah, that's okay. We can go out on the picnic.
Let's do that.
And sometimes too, it's almost with goat milk ice cream in particular. Because it doesn't have a lot of fat, it does tend to be very, very firm. So sometimes just letting it sit for a minute also is just easier. But we actually this year invested in a blast freezer, which has really changed so much about the ice cream because it sets the ice cream the same way it comes out of the churner. So when it's really fluffy and creamy, the blast freezer sets it that way in like 15 minutes. Whereas before we were putting it out of the churner into these big tubs and then putting it into a chest freezer. But the chest freezer is just not cold enough.
Yeah.
So it would settle and crystallize a little bit and be more icy, which is always funny to me because I've been like for years trying to beat the icy. I want it super, super creamy, and all our customers are like, we love how icy it is. It's like so light and refreshing. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine.
You're like, well, I guess I was doing all that
Yeah,
work for
I guess
nothing.
I'll leave it alone.
So let's see if
Salted caramel.
Salted caramel, yeah. And it is, it is a little like kind of crunchy, right?
Yeah,
But
it's icy, and which is normal.
icy, yeah.
Yep. It's a lot of people say it's just like kind of light and refreshing rather than like heavy and really, really rich and creamy.
Oh my.
So it just depends on what you like.
This is so good. It is very refreshing. It doesn't taste as like soft serve feels so heavy. And like the sugar just kind of like sits in your stomach, right?
Yeah.
But this like, I don't need a drink of water while I'm eating my ice cream. You know what I mean?
I do, yeah, because I've always been one that for my ice cream, I've always been that weirdo that if I have ice cream, I want a really big cold glass of milk or a cold glass of water. And it's I swear it's because it's so heavy and creamy that it like coats everything, and I just want to like wash it down. But no, this is very refreshing.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, that's awesome.
I'm gonna finish that off camera because y'all don't want to see all that. But this is so cool.
Thank you.
mean, seeing dairies are cool. We've seen a few now.
Sure.
Seeing goat dairies are cool.
Yeah.
But to meet with someone who literally wrote the law on getting ice cream legal for raw milk is just
It's pretty cool.
really cool.
Thank
Really
you.
cool. So
Appreciate
thank you, Jill,
that.
for having me out. Meeting your girls was awesome. Seeing your setup is amazing.
you.
I love just your process that you've got and how clean you want to keep it. I mean, I love that forward thinking that you
Thank
do.
you.
So yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks
This was
for-
a lot of fun.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Thank you for having me out. I'm gonna go finish some ice cream here. If anybody wants to see any of your links or know where you're at or get some of your ice cream, we'll put all those links in the description.
Oh, awesome.
So that they can
Great.
get those there.
Yeah,
Okay?
Facebook is definitely the best place to follow for us. We
Sweet.
post every single day.
Ooh.
So we're very, very active on our page.
Okay.
And that's where all our customers know to find out everything that's going on.
All right, so we'll definitely put that in there.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jill.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
So having dairy myself is gonna be a goal of ours. No matter where or when we end up, however, probably the first thing we're gonna get is a dairy cow, like black, white, or indifferent. I miss my raw milk. And being here just affirms that, but it also shows me that if I have questions, I know who to call now, you know? And I think that that's so important when we are doing things we haven't done before or still learning. Like she said, she has a mentor and she also tries to mentor people. Then, I mean, the fact that she's like, well, how can I sell this? well, we'd have to change the law. Okay, I can do that. Like just that go-getter. This place is cool, guys. I'm so glad that you are able to be here with me. This was tour number 2 and the same day, but we have plenty more Vermont tours to see, and I will see you at the next one.